I'm Kaylee, and these are the books that I read in June. I'm really happy with my June reading. I read 48 books. Before we dive into those though, I'm gonna reach back here to our Booktuber Shoutout book, and we're gonna shout out somebody randomly. Today's shout out goes to Miranda Mills. I'll leave a link to their channel down in the description. Be sure to go over and follow them. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up. It really does help me out and lets me know that you're enjoying my content. Out of the 48 books that I read in June, 30 of those were picture books. I read 6 middle grade books, 1 classic, 8 nonfiction, 1 graphic novel, 1 young adult book, and 1 children's chapter book. So a pretty good mixture of a lot of different things. So the classic that I read was, I reread for the umpteenth time my favorite Shakespearean play, Much Ado About Nothing. Somehow I just never get tired of Much Ado About Nothing. Every time I read it, I just enjoy it more and more. I love the witty repartee between Beatrice and Benedict. I love the crazy plot with mistaken identities and secrets. There's a lot of intrigue going on. This is such an easy one to read as well. Out of all Shakespeare's plays, I feel like this one is just so easy to read because the plot really flows along very quickly. The dialogue is just so snappy. It really grabs your attention. I just love Beatrice's character so much. She is so vibrant and real. I always seem to find something new in this play. Every time that I read it, I find some different perspective that I never quite thought about before, or some witty little line that really stands out to me. This is my forever favorite out of all of Shakespeare's plays, and of course I always give it 5 stars. I also read a classic middle grade, The Naughtiest Girl Again by Enid Blyton. This is the second book in the Naughtiest Girl in School series, and Elizabeth is back in school for the next school year, and the previous school year she had a reputation as the naughtiest girl in school. And now she's trying to live down that reputation, and she's trying to be good, and she's trying to follow the rules and just be a good person and be kind and generous. But that reputation still follows her, and she still loses her temper sometimes. I really love the old-fashioned charm of this book and the sweet characters. Some of the structure of the school is kind of weird. I mean, it's basically like a communist school, so there's some strange stuff that goes on at that school, okay? But I love the character development that Elizabeth has, and the story is just so charming and adorable, so I don't know. It's okay. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I continued reading the Dragonback series by Timothy Zahn. I read Dragon and Soldier and Dragon and Slave. So despite the word dragon, this is not a fantasy, it's actually sci-fi. And Dracos is an alien who kind of looks like a dragon. And he is a symbiont, so he has to have like a host that he kind of lives on. So Dracos can become 2D and live like on a person's skin, like a tattoo, and then he can come off of their skin and be 3D, but if he doesn't become 2D within like 6 hours, he could die. So his host is Jack, and Jack is a thief. In the second book, Dragon and Soldier, Jack and Dracos are looking for information, and so they join a mercenary group, and Jack becomes a teen soldier. He's hoping to sneak into their computer systems and get some information. There is just non-stop action in all of these books. The plot takes all these twists and turns. I really loved how in this second and third book in the series, Jack and Dracos become much closer friends. They really learn to trust one another. They get into some very sticky situations where there's no time to explain, and they just have to trust that the other person knows what they're doing. I just love their friendship and the level of faith that they have in one another. And then in Dragon and Slave, they're kind of doing the same thing where they're searching for information, and so Jack basically sells himself as a slave, hoping that then he can just escape later on after he has infiltrated this slave compound and gotten the information that he needs. But then he learns that once you're a slave, it's really not that easy to escape. This book in particular had some really interesting world building, and I really loved that we got to explore this deeper theme of the morality and the horrors of slavery. He meets several slaves who risk their own safety to help him, asking for nothing in return. He meets these people who are generous to him even when they have nothing to give. They give anyway. And he really makes Jack rethink his philosophies and search for a deeper meaning. And I loved seeing that character development for him. It was just so phenomenal. I gave both of these books 4 stars. All the rest of the books in this video are books that I received from a publisher or author in exchange for a free and honest review. I read one graphic novel. It's really a graphic novel for children. It's called Tekis. It's about this group of girls, and they are inventors. They love to invent new fancy things, and they invent a rocket ship that will take them to Mars. But then when one of their party gets lost on Mars, the others have to travel to try to rescue them. It's really funny and cute and hilarious, and it's in Spanish, which I really enjoyed. And I love that it's all about encouraging girls to do science and engineering and just explore and maybe invent something. I gave Tekis 4 stars. I also read a children's chapter book, Anna Hibiscus. Anna Hibiscus lives in Nigeria with a big, huge family of aunts and uncles and cousins and grandmas and grandpas. They are a very big, loud family, and sometimes Anna just wishes she could have a minute to herself. I just loved this sweet book. Anna is so adorable, and her family is so cool. I especially loved learning about Nigerian culture and traditions. It was just so beautiful and interesting. The stories are told in a simple, straightforward manner for children, but there are a lot of deeper themes about family and heritage that are explored as well. I gave Anna Hibiscus 5 stars. I read the middle grade novel Meant to Be. Ivy loves living in her rundown apartment building because her best friends live in the same apartment building. But the rest of her family really wishes that they could move away to a nicer house. They're so cramped in this little apartment. Ivy's best friend gets some bad news, and then Ivy tries to cheer her up but ends up saying the wrong thing and just really hurts her feelings. Ivy feels terrible, but she doesn't know how to make things right again. This was such a cute little book. Ivy's narrative voice is so unique, so memorable. But it was also, I don't know, I guess maybe a little more juvenile than I was expecting, but I found her very relatable and sweet. I definitely remember as a kid feeling like I was just constantly saying the wrong thing. I still feel like that as an adult. I thought the plot was good, but it felt like it just moved way too slow. This book could have been condensed into a much shorter book, and I think that the pacing would have moved along a little bit better. I loved all the little details about Ivy's family and her friends, but I didn't need all these extra superfluous details about every single neighbor in the building. It is well written, but I feel like it was too much. Overall, this is a very sweet book that I enjoyed very much. I ended up giving it 4 stars. It's still a really nice book. I also read Healer and Witch. This is a YA fantasy that takes place in the Middle Ages. And Sylvie is terrified that an inquisitor from the Holy Catholic Church will find out that she and her grandmother have kind of magic powers. She has a special ability to heal, which she believes is a gift from God, but she's worried that she'll be denounced as a witch. When Sylvie tries to heal her mother, it all goes terribly wrong, and Sylvie leaves her little French village in order to search for someone like her, someone who is a healer who can teach her how to harness her powers. I loved this story so much. The narrative is kind of subdued. It's very subtle with lots of emotional tension under the surface. There are so many great plot twists that just kept me on my toes. The writing style is very immersive. You feel like you're just right there in every scene. The characters have a lot of depth and a lot of development. Sylvie is an incredibly complex and beautiful character. I just fell in love with her right away. At the beginning of the story, she's kind of this lost soul, and then you begin to see how She just forges a path for herself. She makes a new life for herself. It's so wonderful. There is a little bit of romance in this book, but it's very subtle. It's really sweet. I mean, the most they ever do is hold hands, and one time they hug, but it's so meaningful the way that it's written. It's completely adorable and just so lovely. I gave this book 4 stars. I also read a YA book, Footnail, Genesis Awakens. I can't even say the title without laughing. Footnail is just so odd. So Genesis returns home from college when her grandfather has passed away, and she discovers that he has left behind an ancient relic from the cross of Christ, the nail that went through the feet of Christ on the cross. The relic has these mystical powers, and Genesis has to fight off the evil bad guys who are trying to steal the footnail. I'm sorry, I just can't say footnail without laughing. It just sounds so strange. I do like that this book uses a lot of quotes direct from the Bible, right from scripture. It has a very clear message of faith in Christ. I really liked that. And I think it's a very interesting premise that the nails from the cross could be imbued with mystical power. It's kind of interesting to think about. However, I did end up DNFing this book after page 68. I just kind of lost interest. The plot wasn't really moving along. The writing is not very polished. It really needs a good editor to clean up things like grammar and sentence structure and stuff. The writing style is just kind of disjointed. And I think the title of the series is just so odd. I just keep laughing. It just makes me think of like toenail, footnail, I don't know. I don't think of the type of nail that you would hammer. I think of a toenail. I feel like this book has some potential, maybe with a good editor to polish it up. However, I just ended up giving it 2 stars. And now let's get into some of the non-fiction that I read. I read Antarctica, the Melting Continent, which is all about Antarctica and the animals that live there and the different science stations that are there and the type of work that they do. I read Amazing Animals, 100 Creatures That Will Boggle Your Mind, and they definitely did boggle my mind. There are some weird animals out there in the world, let me tell you. Just some crazy, amazing stuff. I read Botanica's 5-minute Really True Stories for Family Time. I don't know if I would really call these stories. They just tell about different cultures around the world, how different people celebrate different holidays, and what types of food that they eat, and just how they order their everyday lives. It was very interesting, but I'm not sure I would call it a story. I read Return to Factopia, which is a string of facts, all of which connect in some way to the previous fact, and so you just get this long string of random things that are somehow all connected. I read How to Teach Grown-Ups About Pluto. I really loved this one because it goes all into the scientific reasons why we don't classify Pluto as a planet anymore and what the different types of classifications are. Asteroids and comets and moons and planets and dwarf planets and all the different stuff. So it was really interesting to learn about that, but I thought that the writing style was just very irreverent and kind of belligerent. So I don't know, it's like this book had an attitude problem. The information is all really interesting, but the writing style just didn't seem polite. I read Pet That Cat, a handbook for making feline friends. This gives all kinds of instructions and tips and things about caring for cats. It was really cute. And then we get into the 30 picture books that I read, and I'm gonna categorize these by their star rating. I read Rooftop Garden, What Goes Inside, Dear Mama's Loving Arms, Georgie Dupree, Classroom Confidence, This Is the Boat That Ben Built, Baby Cakes, Pumpkin and Me, Rainy Days, El Paraguas de Zebra, Fox Tells a Lie, Mi Primer Emocionometro, What Can I Do? Inspiring Activities for Creative Kids, That's Mine, Yoga Tots Happy Tiger and Yoga Tots Brave Bear, The Depth of the Lake and the Height of the Sky, and Stop the Clock. I read Undies Please, Hello Dark, Parts of a Whole, and Amazing Plants of the World. I read Carlota No Dice Ni Pío, Sneaky Shadows, Thunder Maestro, and Pippin Paints a Portrait. And I also read Where Are You, Little Pig? And those are the books that I read in June. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what are some of your favorite books that you've been reading lately. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.